Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. We are the MMA Sucka Podcast, and my name is Tim Ween, joined as always by Frazer Krohn. Frazer, how's everything today?
Yeah, good mate. Good to get back to it. We obviously had a week off last
Mm.
week. I don't think to be honest, we didn't miss an awful lot. There wasn't a UFC card that happened this weekend, and the Holly Holm versus Viera fight was kind of what we expected. 25 minutes of somewhat point fighting, quite a lot of clinch work, and you know maybe a controversial decision. Personally, I had it scored for Holly Holm.
Yeah.
But like the Michael Venom Page Logan Storley fight the week before, you can't score that fight in favor of Storley and then the other fight in favor of Vieira, because Vieira and Michael Venom Page essentially did the same thing. They were largely controlled but landed the more damaging shots, whereas
Mm.
Holly Holm and Logan Storley did the controlling but
Yeah.
didn't quite land the sort of eye-catching damaging shots, and yet one got their hand raised and the other didn't. So it's controversial in a way, yes, but let's be honest. It's Do we want to see Holly Holm in another title fight against either Amanda Nunes or Juliana Pena? I mean, I can see you shaking your head. Yeah, absolutely not. I think Ketlen Vieira has sort of at least shown a little bit of new blood, and then you bring in the fact that she was knocked out by Irene Aldana, so you've got that potential fight in the future as a rematch. So I think
Mm.
for the company, Ketlen Vieira winning is probably the better option. Although Holly Holm is the biggest star, Ketlen Vieira is the newer blood, shall we say?
Man, has anyone? I'm trying to think of other fighters who are like Holly Holm, who actually are consistently quite a boring fighter. Like even in some of her more highlight reel wins, like the one, her head kick win over Betch Correia. Remember that everyone was booing up to that point.
Exactly.
Really, her best fight was the Ronda Rousey one, and like I think she's just riding a lot of goodwill from that era. But like I can't think of anyone else who maybe Leota, where like he got it. I don't know. Leota was always so much fun though. Even in his boring matches, he was a lot of fun. John Fitch was just like straight up boring. But I can't think of like we also knew that John Fitch was boring. I feel like people are pretending Holly Holm is still a fun fighter to watch, and like I don't think she ever has been, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the Rousey fight really did play into her style. She was the matador in that fight.
Yeah.
I think with her coaches and her boxing background, she could see that Rousey's offensive striking is poor, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that was highlighted obviously when they fought. So her style, Rousey's style, really played into her hands. I thought the Misha Tate fight was quite good. She was winning that fight until she didn't. But on reflection,
Yeah.
was that a good fight or was that a good ending to the fight?
Yes.
Probably the latter. With the Betchka hair fight, yeah, Betch, if you remember, the finish came when Betch was even calling her on, and then
Yeah.
she landed the question mark kick and the strike to finish it off. I
Yeah.
believe that was in Singapore, or sorry, that was in Asia, where we'll go next weekend. But
Yeah.
yeah, the even the fights that she wins and she dominates, they're not the most exciting fights in the world. The Irene Aldana fight that she won.
Yeah.
Yeah, she won it, but she won it by a lot of clinching. Sorry, and I think she, other than the Ronda Rousey knockout and maybe the Betchka hair, I couldn't, I'd struggle to name another Holly Holm fight that really stands out to me,
Yeah.
other than the actual results themselves. I can't remember an awful lot from the Valentina Shevchenko loss, but that was
No.
definitely a loss. You know, I'm looking out. I have no recollection of her fighting Megan Anderson. I have very little recollection of her fighting Raquel Pennington. These are, you know, for want of a better word, they're boring fights. They're just not the most entertaining style. And will she continue to fight? I do believe she will.
Oh yeah.
But at 40 years old now, you know, where does she go from here? Maybe she fights the loser of the Juliana Pena Amanda Nunes fight, but that doesn't really do much for
No.
her, to be honest, in my opinion, anyway. But I'll tune in for a Holly Holm fight because I do quite like her style, but of mixing in the striking now that she's beginning to mix in the clinch wrestling a lot more, and unfortunately for her, she's just not. she's done it too late. If she would have used the clinch game a lot more against someone like a Valentina Shevchenko back in 2016, she probably would have won that fight, because although Valentina's a good clinch game fighter, Holly Holm is far superior with regards to size than Valentina. She's a lot bigger. Holly Holm's never making 125. Valentina is, I think she'd struggle to make 145 physically. She didn't cut to get to 135 really.
That's true.
So I think that the change up in style for Holly Holm maybe has come a little bit late. But like I say, will I tune in for the next Holly Holm fight? Most probably, to be honest. I do quite like her style.
Yeah, but she's making people miss. It's just like she's missing the rest of that, and she's too old to like start picking it up now, I feel. But she's making people miss quite a bit. So you're setting traps and you're making your opponents miss. So punish them for it. Why are you just dancing around? I think the other example, maybe Tim Sylvia and Andrei Arlovsky, where like they came in on a couple of knockouts, and then they had like a couple of boring fights, and everyone wrote them off as boring forever. Holly Holm, people are still like, she's kind of interesting, kind of fun. Like you're the problem, Frazer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I do kind of, it's almost, taking it over to the boxing side of things for a second. Tyson Fury was not always the most entertaining fighter.
He was notably boring for most of his career.
For sure. And then, he obviously had the prolonged breakaway, came back, fought two absolute taxi drivers, bin men. They weren't full-time fighters, let's be honest. He then fights Deontay Wilder the first time, fights on the back foot, using his elusive style, training with Ben Davidson. He then drops Ben Davidson for the second Deontay Wilder fight, and look what happens. He picks up, he starts working with Sugar Hill Stewart at the Krohn gym, and he's got knockout of Deontay Wilder, knockout of Deontay Wilder, knockout of Dillian White. So, and you can notably see him now. He's fighting on the front foot far more, and he's using that size and power. And, that's maybe, I put a story out on MMA Sucka about Anthony Joshua's new, he's decided on a new trainer. He's split from Robert McCracken now, and he's training with Robert Garcia, the older brother of Mikey Garcia.
Mm.
Will that work for him in the Usyk rematch? Only time will tell. But if Tyson Fury is anything to go by, switching up your trainer is a good move.
Now, speaking of boxing, this transitions really well. Let's talk about the Raleigh, or sorry, not the Raleigh knockout, the Tank Davis knockout. My God! He's just the coolest. I think he has got one of the best highlight reels of the last few years, doesn't he?
Exactly, and he doesn't look like he should have that power. These guys are not. He's 27 wins, 25 knockouts, I think. And like you say, within the last 3 or 4 years, his highlight reel is arguably the best highlight reel in boxing. That Leo Santa Cruz uppercut, which I'm pretty sure a lot of places had him winning knockout of the year, and then this fight at the weekend against Romero.
Yeah.
It almost didn't look like it landed with any. If you watch the replay, it just looks like a slick counter. Slide out the way of the attack. Mm-hmm. Like you were saying with Holly Holm, made him miss, but he made Romero pay. Whereas Holly Holm obviously doesn't. But Tank, that shot to me didn't look like it landed with hellacious power. And then. But if you watch it in replay, Romero's eyes just shoot straight to the ceiling, and he's out. He's out, and I think it's I think he just about got back to his feet, but it was a good stoppage. But Tank has done what he needs to do now to put himself right back in the picture, because obviously this weekend we've got Cambod Jr. versus Devin Haney for all the belts, mm-hmm. And I think it was a really, really good, time for Tank Davis. I think that couldn't have been timed better for him to get the highlight reel knockout, because even whoever wins this, I don't think George Kambosos has the power to he doesn't have the power to knock Devin Haney out. If you look at his win, if you look at his record, so he's 20-0, 10 wins by knockout, 10 wins by decision. Devin Haney is notorious for cruising through fights. He's not not the most interesting fighter. To be honest, he hasn't actually he hasn't finished anyone since 2019. He's got one retired. His last finish victory was where his opponent retired. But since then, he's gone 12 rounds 4 times in a row now with Jorge Linares and Jojo Diaz.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like the kind of fighter that could definitely put their foot on the gas, but just decides not to, which is frustrating. It really is frustrating, because there's nothing worse than seeing a fighter cruise to a victory when they could be putting their foot down and like I say, really stamping out the victory. And that's why I think, Tank Davis, outside of the ring, probably not someone that you want to tune in for and not someone that you want to really support and follow. But inside of the ring, there's no denying that he's one of the most exciting fighters in boxing today, especially at these lighter weight classes. And
yeah,
like I say, the timing couldn't have come much better for Tank with that knockout this weekend. Now we go for sort of all the marbles, on the 5th of June from the Marvel Stadium in Australia. George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin Haney. It's a phenomenal fight, and Haney is the heavy favourite going into the fight. But in my opinion, you write off Kambosos at your peril. He was a big underdog against Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah.
What a performance that was. I watched the fight back 2 days ago now. Sometime last week I watched the fight back, and that right hand that he landed in the first round completely changed the fight. He dropped Teo, and he was in the pocket, landing, cutting angles. And yes, it was a split decision victory, but anybody that watched that, it wasn't a split decision victory. I think Kambosos really dominated that fight and came away with the victory. So like I say, right Kambosos off at your own peril, because yes, Devin Haney's good, but Kambosos is seriously good as well.
Well, Kambosos, like it's like riding high off of an incredible performance. Can he tactically repeat that going in against a fighter where I think Kambosos might have more titles than Haney, but Haney's the favorite going in. So we got the WBO, IBF, and the Ring. Yeah, Kambosos just the WBC lightweight championship. Oh, we're getting them all together. What a good fight it is. But can he do it again tactically? Can he put it all together in this fight?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's certainly difficult because, like we say, George Kambosos is the, he's got all the belts heading in other than the WBC belt. But let's not forget that Devin Haney never actually won that WBC belt. He was gifted he was the interim champion, and then he was gifted the WBC lightweight title via email. He never actually won the outright WBC title.
What's the story here? Wait, bring me up to date. What's the story with that?
So that's pretty much it, to be honest. Obviously we had Lomachenko as a WBC, the WBC champion, and then he was promoted to WBC franchise champion, which is what sort of Canelo is, or was at least. So that then led the WBC belt to becoming vacant because Lomachenko was promoted to franchise champion. Haney then wins the interim belt and was simply promoted to sort of full champion, should we say, to the WBC champion after winning the interim bout, purely because Lomachenko was the WBC franchise champion. He's never beaten a champion to become the champion, as it were. Whereas, let's compare that to George Kambosos. He beat Teofimo, was legitimately the IBF, WBO, Ring, WBA. He was legitimately the lightweight champion going into the fight. George Kambosos beats him and takes his belts off him. That's exactly how it should be done, in my opinion. Devin Haney was gifted the bout via email. Let's not deny that he's an absolutely quality fighter, but if you're just on his page here, won the WBC interim lightweight title in 2019, retained the WBC lightweight title. You just dropped the word interim there. He should have had an undisputed fight for probably against Vasily Lomachenko, who yes, he did drop the belts to Teofimo Lopez, but it's not quite in my opinion, that's not quite how we do it. But it is what it is. Luckily, this weekend we'll get one champion coming out of it. Let's not hope for a draw or any controversy. But
yeah, man, it's too late. You've already there. It is.
I've just thought now. I've just literally, as I said that, I've thought, we're going to come out. We got one champion for one weight, and now I know what's going to happen. Now it's going to be a draw or something. But even if it is, we've got so many people on the outside now. Like I say, Tank Davis.
Yeah.
This fight was originally scheduled to be Cambod versus Vasily Lomachenko, but obviously with everything going on in the Ukraine, Lomachenko pulled out. Haney stepped in. It's not late notice at all. I think that the fight was actually put back slightly, but I think with it being in Australia as well, Cambod should not be such a big underdog in my opinion. He's really, like I say, he's really good, and I think with it being in Australia, in his home country, you've got plenty of if you just look down the card, there's only 4 or 5 people that aren't Australian natives on there. You've got Junior Farr, one of the most exciting up and coming boxers in the heavyweight division from Australia. Last time out he did lose against Joseph Parker, but that was a huge step up in class.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, it's all about Cambod and Devin Haney, and I think the fight itself will likely live up to the expectations. I'm not sure at the moment whether Haney's trainer and father were able to get into the country. I did hear something that they weren't able to get into the country due to some sort of felony charge 10, 12 years ago. So whether that will play a part, I'm not quite sure. But we have got a UFC card this weekend. But if in my opinion, this is the fight of the weekend without a doubt.
Oh, by far. Some weird time because it's on midday in Australia. If you are in the US, this is a great time zone to be watching fights from Australia. If you are in Britain, you can catch it the next day because they start around 4 a.m. or something like that. But yeah, the UFC does have a card, one of their mandatory contract cards. Alexander Volkov versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik fighting for, I don't know. I'm just gonna say it. I think Volkov easily takes this fight, but I think it's going to be a long, boring fight to get there. The Dan Ige fight is a much better one, and that should be headlining it. I don't know. I don't have anything else to throw on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree with what you say. Both men coming off losses. Obviously, Volkov last time out against Tom Aspinall. Rozenstruik last time out against Curtis Blades, which is ironic because them two are now fighting each other, obviously in London at the end of July. I think the UFC must really like Alexander Volkov because this is if it goes ahead, this is his 7th headlining fight, which is a lot for a fighter that's never fought for a title or never quite been, never even, apart from that Derek Lewis knockout, never really been on the edge of a title sort of contention. He with Volkov, he wins some and he loses some. That's just if you look down his last sort of 4 or 5 fights, he lost to Blades, he beat Harrison over him, he lost to Garn, he beat Tybura, he lost to Aspinall. So with Volkov, I don't think if you look at his last sort of his only losses in the UFC, Derek Lewis was that crazy knockout at the end of the 3rd round. I think that was in New York. That was on the Khabib McGregor card.
Right.
He was winning that. He won that fight on the cards. He was cruising to a victory. Curtis Blades, he was out wrestled. Cyril Gane, he was outpointed. Tom Aspinall, he was done on the floor. I don't see Jairzinho Rozenstruik doing any of that to him. He's not going to take him down like Tom Aspinall did or Curtis Blades did. And I think he's not the kind of intelligent striker that Cyril Gane is. I can see if Volkov wants to win this, he needs to keep it long, be first, and keep his back off the fence. Because I this morning I watched Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai, and that's Sakai I think just got a little bit lazy at the end of the 1st round and was finished up against the fence. With that being said, Rozenstruik has got that explosive power, but I don't think I don't think it's going to be enough to, Volkov is so tall, and he'll probably be able to. I know it sounds ridiculous, but quite simply just lean out of the way of the strikes of Rozenstruik if he uses that height and that reach. I was just looking at the he's 6'7" against Rozenstruik 6'2". He's
It's
got
a big difference.
especially at heavyweight, and Volkov knows how to use that height.
Yeah.
So I think officially my pick is going to be Volkov by decision. I don't think he knocks Rozenstruik out. I don't think he's going to put himself in danger to knock Rozenstruik out. But unlike the Devin Haney George Kambosos fight, this isn't one that's going to get me out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm afraid.
No, I think the bigger picture here is like, yeah, these are pretty good middling heavyweights. They're both top ranked guys, but they're also two guys who never adjust game plans based on what's happening in the fight. If their game plan in round 1 doesn't work, they don't adjust in round 2, 3, 4, and 5. Both of them are guilty of this. I can't imagine this is going to be an interesting fight. Unlike the co-main event with Dan Ige and Movsar Evloev. I'm saying it wrong. And Movsar. But that is a good fight. I think like Dan Ige is always a gamer. He's a good gatekeeper for the whole division. He's always an exciting fighter, but I think this is a coming out party. I think this is the moment that we start talking about Movsar even more as a top contender. And I wish this was the headliner so that we could talk about this kid even more. But I really do see Movsar taking this fight, unanimous decision all day long. What do you think of the co-main event here?
Yeah, for sure. And I completely the main event. Obviously, it would be Evloev's first main event in the UFC, and it wouldn't be Dan Ige. So it's not like it's not like there's a risk. Or no, none of these guys have headlined before. Dan Ige has headlined, I think, multiple times, 2 or 3 times maybe. Yeah. He had the headline against Korean Zombie. He had the headline against Calvin Qatar. I think there was only 2 headlines actually, but even so, yes, they were both losses for him, but. This is a big turning point for Dan Ige because he's coming off. 3 of his last 4 fights have been losses,
mm-hmm.
and he's in against an absolute gamer in Evloev.
Yeah.
Evloev's 15-0. He was supposed to fight Ilir Topuria at the beginning of the year, which would have been an absolute scrap. And I think this fight is maybe even better for him because Dan Ige is slightly more established in the division.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that's missing from Evloev's game is the finishes. He's 5-0 in the UFC, I think. 5-0 in the UFC, all via decision. But he does have those finishes. He has 7 finishes in 15 wins outside of the UFC M1 challenge, and these aren't against poor guys. Some of the guys that he's finished are now in the UFC or have competed in the UFC and Bellator. So I can see this. However, saying that, I can see this being a fairly routine victory for Evloev. Dan Ige's got 55% takedown defense, whereas Evloev lands on average 4 takedowns per 15 minutes.
Yeah,
that's a lot of takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's doing it against good guys. Mike Grundy is a former Commonwealth Games wrestler. Nick Lenz, solid wrestling game. Hakeem Dawood's got good takedown defense, but it just wasn't on show. And I think, if Dan Ige is gonna win this one, he has to. I always picture Dan Ige being the smaller man going into the bout, but this one he's not. I'm just looking at the stats now. They're both 5'7". He's got a 1-inch reach disadvantage, which really isn't an awful lot. So he has to try and keep it as long as possible, Dan Ige. Similar to Alexander Volkov in the main event, I think Dan Ige does need to keep this long.
Yeah.
Because that'll accentuate him not getting taken down. The longer that he can stay on the feet, the better for him. But with that being said, it's almost like a double, triple threat. Evloev can strike as well. He lands more strikes per minute than Dan Ige. Yes, those may be slightly skewed with the sort of ground and pound that he lands. But, they've got similar striking accuracy at 46 and 44%.
Mm-hmm.
This for me is really who's willing to make that next step through the division. If Dan Ige loses this, it's difficult for him because he's ranked number 10 at the moment and he'll be on a 3-fight losing streak. If Evloev wins this, he'll most certainly leapfrog Dan Ige, and then he's in the top 10. And if you look at the guys above him, I think he matches up well with Bryce Mitchell. If Bryce Mitchell can't take you down, it's quite a long night for Bryce Mitchell. Giga Chikadze, I think he obviously gets outstruck by Giga, but you can take him down. And then you're looking at the elite of the division in Josh Emmett, Arnold Allen, Korean Zombie, Alvin Qatar. Rodriguez and Max Holloway have been booked this week. Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez and Max Holloway and Volkanovski are all booked. We got a story coming out last night that Korean Zombie's not going to actually retire like we all thought he would. We're waiting on Arnold Allen. Some news on Arnold Allen. Obviously he fought, knocked out Dan Hooker in March. I'm surprised that he hasn't been announced for the upcoming UFC London card in July.
Mm-hmm.
But who do you put him in against? Maybe a Giga Chikadze, but that's him punching down the division where Arnold Allen really needs to be looking up. But if you look where Arnold Allen is, everyone above him is booked. So like a Movsar Evloev might make sense for Arnold Allen next because he's, he could take all the hype from Evloev. But yeah, I completely co-sign with you that the main event isn't the best fight. It's not even, in my opinion, it's sort of third or fourth one to look out for because it's got no real. The outcome of the fight doesn't really affect the division much. We've got the guy who's ranked number 8 versus the guy who's ranked number 7, but they probably both lose to everyone above them in the division pretty comfortably. Cyril Gane, Stipe Miocic, Taito Ivasa, Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis, Tom Aspinall. I think they all beat them fairly handily. I think Alexander Romanov puts in a good fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Alexander Volkov, and he's ranked number 13. So, whereas, like we say, comparing this to the co-main event, I think the co-main event is far more competitive and it's far more interesting as far as the outcome's concerned.
Yeah, and looking at the future of both of those guys, the co-main event is far more interesting in a far more interesting division. But let's talk about some dumb stuff. Let's get into it. I got a pop quiz for you. 2 UFC champions made their debut 20 years ago. So in 2002, 2 future UFC champions made their debut. What's your guess?
Are they still? They're surely not still fighting today, I'll assume.
One of them is.
Ooh, should one of them though?
Actually, let me check if both are. You know how the sport. No, just one. Just one is.
Is one of them on quite the win streak at the moment?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Andrei Arlovsky, but
good guess. Really good guess, though. That's a really good guess.
Who's still fighting? Whoever it is, it's going to be upsetting, isn't it?
So the one that is kind of like that. Oh, okay, sure. 20 years ago, made his debut, became a UFC champion in 2006, I believe. Tim Sylvia. Not a big one. That's fair. Yeah, reasonable. The other one made his debut in the UFC 20 years ago this year, became a UFC champion in 2014. Robbie Lawler.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Because he was like 19 or something like that when he entered the UFC. He was just young guy.
He was just scrapping at that point. There was no real technique, and it's the Nick Diaz fight where he just sort of tumbles.
Yes, that's the one.
And then we've got the more updated Nick Diaz fight, should we say, from last year, which was a strange odd fight, that one, wasn't it?
Man, it's just sad. And even some of the people on the inside were saying, like, man, Nick had to take that fight for like money purposes or contractual purposes. Everything about that fight was just sad. Even Robbie Lawler at the end of the fight was saying, like, are you okay? Like, is this okay?
Yeah. Just like, it's almost like, we don't need to do this. We do not need to do this.
Let's get to some dumb stuff. Like I said, I feel like every time we talk about Jorge Masvidal in any context, it's just like, man, this is dumb. You know what I mean? This is just stupid. He's talking to Conor McGregor on Twitter. He's called out Conor McGregor for like 4 years now. I don't know. What do we make of these two trash talking on Twitter? What's your idea? What's your thoughts? He called him a pigeon brain. The other guy said he wants a fight. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's dumb stuff. Jorge Masvidal ranked number 8 in the welterweight division. Sorry, McGregor ranked number 8 in the lightweight division. I just don't understand because Dana White's not in the business to put his 2 biggest stars. I still think that Conor McGregor is the the biggest star in the sport still.
Oh, yeah,
regardless of win streak or lose streak or anything, he is still the biggest star in the sport for Dana White.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he's on the back of 2 consecutive losses to the same guy, both via finish. Even the second one with a broken leg.
Yeah.
So is Jorge Masvidal. He's on the back of, I think, 3 consecutive losses now, 2 via pretty dominant decision, and then obviously the big knockout to Kamaru Usman.
Man, I forgot. Actually, Jorge Masvidal might be the best Holly Holm example of riding like one knockout for your whole career, because he's career-wise been one of the most boring fighters. He's always been a pretty boring fighter. Got like 3 knockouts in a row. Kind of went back to being boring again.
Exactly, and he got the Darren Till, the Ben Askren.
Yep.
And
that's it. It was just and then
the Nate Diaz stoppage. His Nate Diaz stoppage is as legitimate, in my opinion, as even more legitimate than Dustin Poirier's stoppage of Conor, because he actually caused the cut on Nate Diaz, whereas this, we did quite an in-depth video breakdown of whether Poirier did actually cause the leg break of McGregor. That is what it is. It's still to be debated today, but will these two ever fight? I seriously doubt it, because like I say, Dana White's not in the business to put his 2 biggest stars against each other, especially when they're both coming off. They got 5 consecutive losses in their last 5 fights, including 3 finishes. Yes, they're still both stars, but realistically, what does it do? I think if I'm Jorge Masvidal, yes, of course I push for the fight because it's the money fight, and fairly easy fight for Masvidal. I believe he's got the superior size. We saw Conor look quite small against Dustin Poirier. He's going to look very small against Jorge Masvidal, who has to cut a lot to get to 170. We see him on the scale; he always looks, drawn out. And I think it's just sort of almost paper talk. It's Twitter talk. I think Conor's next fight will either be a gimme fight against, unfortunately, a gimme in these days is like a Tony Ferguson. He is somewhat chinny these days. We've seen him finished, obviously, against Michael Chandler. How much does a knockout like that take off you? The knockout or the finish at the hands of Justin Gaethje as well probably took a good few years off his career.
Yeah.
And Masvidal, Masvidal next has to fight a striker, because he's been out-wrestled in 2 of his last 3 fights, and then he was outstruck by Kamaru Usman, who's not a notorious striker. With that being said, I think, what do you do with Jorge Masvidal next? He's not getting any young. He's not. Well, Jorge Masvidal will never be a UFC champion. No. Other than the BMF champion, but we're not in the business of doing any of that shit. But but if you're looking up the division, I think Masvidal, if he's got any sense, will sit out now until Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards fight each other, and then hope that Kamaru Usman gets the win and do the grudge match against Leon Edwards, because that's a good fight for Jorge Masvidal. You've got the 3-piece and a soda.
It is. It's a fair fight. Like it's actually a pretty good, well-matched, fun little fight. And Leon Edwards, I think it's a winnable fight for Leon.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's got the superior wrestling, I think, without a doubt. And I'd probably say he's got the superior striking. Outside of the boxing range, he's far superior, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Masvidal, I've seen Stephen Thompson call him out. Of course, Stephen Thompson called him out because he absolutely dominated him when those 2 fought. And it's a big fight for Wonder Boy. The nicest motherfucker versus the baddest motherfucker. It's just like, wow. Neither of you are likely to ever be UFC champion. Probably never get a UFC title shot, each of you, again, because you're both on the sort of wrong side of your prime. But it's a fun fight, but it's not a big money fight for Masvidal. Looking up the division, if I'm Masvidal, Vicente Luque is booked. Bilal Muhammad doesn't really do an awful lot, I don't think, for Jorge Masvidal. Burns, Chimaev, Edwards, and Colby, and then looking down, Sean Brady, I think, dominates him. Neil Magny's a good fight, but the thing is with Jorge Masvidal, I think he's in the business now of money fights. As is Conor McGregor. You look at the division for Conor McGregor. I'd like to see the RDA fight, but I think RDA is on a different path. He wants to get back to a title shot. Beneil Dariush, he randomly called Beneil Dariush out on Twitter the other day, saying he's the most boring guy or the biggest nobody in the company or something like that, or something to that effect.
What a weird call out of like Beneil's not doing anything right now.
he's injured.
Yeah.
He fought a guy that you'd probably never even sign up to fight in Islam Makhachev, or he was signed up to fight Islam Makhachev.
Mm.
And unfortunately, I think Beneil Dariush, I think that's a competitive fight with Conor McGregor. You know, you think of Beneil Dariush is easily hittable, very easily hittable,
Yeah.
but he's also wily on the floor and he's got a chin. You know, from the top of my head, I can only think of Beneil Dariush being knocked out once, and that was against Edson Barboza. That was Barboza in his explosive prime with that flying knee.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about the finish of Drakkar Close from Beneil Dariush, you know, he was heavily rocked there and he just carried on walking forward and he landed on Drakkar Close. So,
yeah.
If I'm Conor McGregor, I'll probably leave that one, to be honest. You know, if I'm Conor McGregor, I call out, you know, someone like Dan Hooker or who's a big name but also has the ability to be knocked out, should we say?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know
what's happening.
You can Google so many, like there's an article every day of who's next for Conor McGregor, and I think every single opponent listed is like, man, he's not going to fight Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler beats him. I have no doubt about that. Handling. I think most of like the top 5 probably beats him in either welterweight, featherweight, or lightweight, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if he could, he's never making featherweight again, but there's far more exciting fights at featherweight for him than there is far more exciting and competitive fights at featherweight than there is at lightweight or welterweight. You know, Max Holloway 2, I think, would be a great fight.
Do it at lightweight. Why not?
Exactly. Brian Ortega would be a great fight.
Sure.
Yair Rodriguez would be Calvin Kattar, great fight. Arnold Allen, even great fight. But none of these are going to happen because Conor's just packing on the size, and you know, it is what it is. But on the subject of weird shit, should we say? Yeah. Did you see one of the fights that's been announced for this weekend? Literally was announced this week for this weekend.
What's going
Felice Herrick versus Karolina Kovalkiewicz. Announced on 7 days' notice. Neither woman had already been booked for this fight card. They just randomly thought, we'll stick this on the main card.
Oh, I don't know about this one. This is a weird one for both fighters, isn't it? Like, what's going on here? 7 days notice for 2 fighters who are... Oh, man, I don't know about this.
I mean, Karolina's last win was Felice Herrick in 2018, which is dicey. And Felice Herrick hasn't competed in coming up. It'll be 2 years in August. She hasn't won since 2017, which was a split decision loss. I don't understand what. I'm not mad about the fight at all. 2 women on a losing streak. They've got a little bit of history.
Was this
what
like they had to?
About is why 7 days notice? And no disrespect to these women. Why is it opening up the main card?
Well, why would they? So this is a funny question. They're acting like they have to fight out their contract, so they booked it on 7 days notice. But like these aren't big name fighters. This isn't like Nate Diaz, and you have to get him a fight before he leaves. If both of these, like, what was the desperation to get Felice Herrick and Karolina Kovalkiewicz back in the octagon? We need it in 7 days, or else cancel the whole card. Why? This fight, you can book it 6 months from now. I can tell you right now, we're in this industry. I like Karolina. I like Felice. No one cares about this fight.
What does it do for the? I think if Karolina Kovalkiewicz wins this, she retires because she's on 5 consecutive losses at the moment with 2 finishes. With that being said, if you look at the 5 women she's lost to, with the exception, you know, no disrespect, but with the exception of Jessica Penne, Jessica Andrade, former champion, Michelle Waterson, very good point fighter, especially at that weight, especially fighting a girl that is a similar sort of weight to her.
And at that time, you know.
Yeah. Alexa Grasso, that's, you know, aging is quite you never have a good loss, but you know, she's on an upward trajectory. Yang Xiaonan, when she was undefeated in the UFC, went to decision with her. And then obviously the Jessica Penne loss. But
those good losses.
Karolina, you know, yeah, like you say, is there ever a good loss? Probably not, but they're not bad losses. You know, she's not losing to debuting fighters or or anything like this, and she's not being fit. Yes, she was finished by Jessica Andrade in one of the most devastating knockouts in women's MMA history.
Yeah.
Yes, she lost to Jessica Penne by her armbar, but she was just caught, and she was winning that fight. Felice Herrick, for the past 2 years, I believe, I've put in my sort of predictions for the year that Dana White needs to cut some people, and every time I don't want to say decent fighter because that makes me it makes me sound like I'm not calling Felice Herrick a decent fighter, but we get fighters cut all the time from the UFC on the back of next to no losses or even on a win streak, and you've still got Felice Herrick. She's without a win since 2017 on the Holloway versus Aldo 2 card.
That was such a good fight too.
Holloway versus Aldo 2.
Every week we should talk about Holloway Aldo 2, not Felice Herrick.
But, I mean, if you look at that, Jose Aldo, who is 2 years younger than Felice Herrick, has since had 8 fights.
He's like he's had a massive resurgence in just a couple of years.
Fights.
Yeah. He's had a whole career, really, in that time.
I mean, Francis Ngannou has had a title shot, had a loss, gone 4-0, then regained the title, then turned himself into a wrestler since she last got a win. Sergio Pettis fought Henry Cejudo on the card. This is Justin Gaethje versus Eddie Alvarez. Charles Oliveira, last loss, was on this card against Paul Felder.
Totally new career now.
And you just go. I'm just Dominic Reyes, I think, maybe made his UFC debut on the card. So Dominic Reyes had his second fight in the UFC on that card. He since went he won 4 fights in a row, had a title shot, went away, picked up another loss, went away and picked up another loss. We're talking monumental changes in the UFC since these two ladies fought. Eddie Alvarez and Sergio Pettis both fought on this card. Henry Cejudo. I think that I didn't realize that Henry Cejudo had fought on this card. That's the most shocking one for me. Henry Cejudo fought on this card. Since then, he's picked up 2 different belts, retired, and is now back in the testing pool since picked up a win. I mean, I don't know what this fight does. I don't know why this fight is on the card, but I'm excited. I like Karolina Kovalkiewicz. I think she's a very good clinch fighter. She's now training with ATT. She's put that beef to bed with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and they began training together again when they were in Poland. And now I think Karolina's come across to the US to train out of ATT a little bit.
Yep.
Another crazy fight on this card, but that Benoit Saint Denis back, the guy that got an absolute beating in his last fight against Zaleski, and when we thought that the referee and or the team should have stepped in on that one, and that women's fight isn't even the best women's fight on the card. It's the arguably the third best women's fight on the card, but certainly the best women's fight for me is Erin Blanchfield versus JJ Aldrich. Blanchfield's on a tear at the moment. She's 23. And she just picked up that big win against Miranda Maverick at the end of last year. Why she hasn't been? She's supposedly opening the card as per Tapology. Why is she not on the main card? I don't know, but it is what it is. It's like you say, crazy shit.
5-fight win streak in the UFC with these 2 fighters, and they're opening up the main card. I don't know, but the UFC with some of these ESPN cards is just like, man, I don't know. There's a bunch of names that we pulled out of a hat, put them in any order. Like, this is like we have a contract that we have to fulfill. I don't care about the quality, and it shows over and over again. Like, how many weeks have we been like, the UFC's doing nothing with their big name stars? Blah blah blah.
Well, that's the thing, you like you say, a 5-fight combined UFC winning run against an 8-fight loss streak.
Yeah,
like work that out. I don't quite understand how that is materialized.
And I guarantee it's not like you're setting up a contender. Kovalkiewicz and Herrick will never fight for a title in the UFC, and I like both of them. Aldrich and Blanchfield, potentially you have a future contender in one of those people there. Like, whether we're talking 2 years from now, there's actually might be a contender in that fight. I don't understand. Sure. I don't get it. They're going to put these 2 on like Facebook or something.
Exactly. And Erin Blanchfield is 23 years old, and she's already, I think, 2 or 3-0 in the UFC, and she's just beat Miranda Maverick, who is a killer in her own right. Big up these women now, and it's behind closed doors. It's not like, if we put these women on the main card, the moment might get them. It's behind closed doors. There's going to be a similar size crowd for their fight, maybe plus or minus 10 people for the main event. It makes no real difference whether they're on the main card or not, but it gets eyes on them if they're on the main card. And yet you put 2 women with a combined 8 losses in a row on the main card. And on combined losses, I also saw, I think this was booked a while ago, a fighter that me and you are massive fans of.
Go on.
Has been booked for another fight in August.
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Sam Alvey.
Oh, he's back, baby!
Another fight. He's 8 fights without a win, 4 losses, a draw, and then 3 further losses, of which 2, 3, 4 have all been finishes. 4 out of his 8 losses. He hasn't won a fight since 2018, which was a split decision win over the split decision machine that is Gian Vellante. And yet, this guy's being given more time against Olin Jacek, who's not a bad fighter. He's going to get knocked out again, and probably given a fight on the final card of the year. I cannot. I just, this week in the UFC and the world of MMA has just been batshit, and I just, like I say, we're giving people random fights just for the sake of announcing fights at this point. You're
gonna give the guy. How did you say Oleksevich? It's pretty cool.
I have no idea how to pronounce his name, to be honest, but it's the guy who got Von Flue choked once.
Yeah, Michael. So he has 11, something like 80% of his wins are by TKO, and we're gonna put him up against Sam Alvey on a knockout losing streak. Just cut Sam Alvey. Why are you trying to murder the man? I feel like the UFC both loves and hates Sam Alvey because they keep him employed and they keep him paid, but they give him fights like this just to see him die. I actually don't they clearly hate Sam Alvey, right?
They just, like you say, they just mustn't like the guy. And I mean, I don't know who he's pissed off, but he must have pissed someone off. Maybe it's Dana, because they are just giving him these fights. But that was announced. I think that was announced this week. But with that being said, there's a lot of good fights have been announced this week as well. Like we say, Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez, Paddy Pimblett returns against Jordan.
That's a good fight. That's a good fight right there.
Exactly. It's far more competitive than Paddy Pimblett's past 2 fights.
Yes, it is.
It's slightly concerning that Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold have been moved from UFC 277 to UFC 278. Why that is, I'm not quite sure. But the fight that we said that needs to be made as well is Caitlin Chukagian versus Manon Fiorot at UFC Paris. That's booked. I'm hoping that's going to be co-main event because those 2 women deserve it, to be honest.
Let's see what's going on with the UFC Paris card. Do you think they're going to... I was just down in Paris and I was talking to someone down there. Do you think they're going to put together a pretty good card for this debut in Paris? Or most of the time when the UFC goes overseas, they kind of just throw whatever, you know what I mean? If it's not a pay-per-view event, it's just a filler event.
I think that I think anyone that doesn't make the UFC card in London on July 23rd will likely feature any sort of big European, your Gunnar Nelsons. If he doesn't feature in the July card, he'll feature in the September card.
Yeah.
We spoke about Arnold Allen earlier. I don't think Arnold Allen will be on that card at all, purely because, he's a headliner now, and we understand. I'm not even sure. Well, I think it is official now, actually, but Cyril Gane and Tai Tuivasa. You probably got the co-main event there in Chukagian versus Fiorot.
Oh yeah, okay.
Cyril Gane. Other fights on that card, I think, that have been announced. But whether they do what Bellator do and sign some French sort of prospects, probably. I don't think that would be a bad idea, because we got the debut of Molly McCann in London a few years ago. We got the debut of Mike Grundy in London a few years ago. In Liverpool, both of these were in Liverpool. And, we do have debuting fighters in London a lot.
Yep.
So why not put them on the Paris card? I think, if they can't make the London card in July, which it's only it's the 31st of May today. That's only sort of a month, 2 months, best part of just under 2 months away.
Yeah.
Give them that extra couple of months to make the Paris. I think it's September 3rd or 23rd.
Something like that. Yeah. 3rd.
Oh yeah, September 3rd. So yeah, make those fights, and I do think, unfortunately, it will be a filler card because I think people will tune in because it's the first event in Paris, irrespective
Certainly.
of who's on the card. But we've already got, like I say, we've already got 2 bangers in a main event and a co-main event.
Cyril Gane's a good one. That's going to be a really fun fight. Is that going to end up being an interim title? Do you think?
If anything, I think the Aspinall versus Blade should be, because I don't know.
It should be.
We'll have to see what happens with Cyril Gane. With Francis Ngannou, but the UFC have set a precedent and they're not really sticking to it. They set the precedent making Kai Kara France versus Brandon Moreno for an interim title because Figgy's out until the end of the year. But then I don't see Ngannou returning anytime before December, so they should make an interim title fight at heavyweight. Don't see Usman returning anytime soon, so I think they should probably make an interim title fight at welterweight. But they've kind of scuppered themselves here because they've announced that interim title fight rather than announcing it as the number 1 contender.
Yeah.
And now they've got a sort of, they're almost going back on their word, as it were.
Yeah, we'll see what the UFC does. They're very much like always short-term thinking kind of thing. Like whatever we need right now. It doesn't matter if it makes sense when we look back. It's whatever we need at the moment to hype up a card kind of thing. But let me throw in with Luke Rockhold, Paulo Costa. That fight sucks for Luke Rockhold. This guy's old. He's slower than he ever was before. I feel like this is the kind of fight where he always struggled in. He was kind of good against counter wrestlers because he was outstriking a lot of these guys, like Lyoto Machidas and guys like this. The power strikers who could outmuscle him, like Paulo Costa, he always struggled with. He always got knocked out by these guys, and now he's older than he ever was before. This is a bad fight for Luke.
It's a difficult one. I know a lot of people don't. I quite like Luke Rockhold. I think
I like him too, but let's be real. Like,
no. He's getting pretty badly knocked out in this one, isn't he? Let's say, just looking down his record now. If you look at the power strikers that he's faced, Jan Blachowicz can be a power striker, especially against a smaller man. KO'd. Yoel Romero, one of the most explosive power strikers, KO'd. He was hurt by David Branch in their fight, if you remember. He was wobbled by David Branch, who isn't even a power striker. Michael Bisping is a volume striker, not a power striker. Knocked him out. And then you go into his wins. Chris Weidman, wrestler who tried the most ambitious wheel kick of anyone I've ever seen and gave up his title in that one wheel kick moment.
I know.
Lyoto Machida, like you say, yes, he can be an explosive striker, but it's a completely different explosive style than someone like a Yoel Romero.
That might be his best win right there. Lyoto Machida might be his career best win we're talking about too.
For sure, But then you look at Tim Bosch, and then you go down into his Strikeforce days. Jesse Taylor, Jacare is a good win, but completely different. And we're going down to 2012 here.
We're over 10 years ago, and we're like, yeah, Jacare was a good win. 12 years or 11 years ago.
Exactly. It for Luke Rockhold, I think, what does he want? I don't think fighting someone with the name of Paulo Costa does much for him. Why the fight has been put off by a month, nobody, it says for unknown reasons.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
That doesn't trend too well for either guy.
No, it does not. That's a bad sign for these guys.
Especially for Paulo Costa, who, if you remember, he came in way overweight for his middleweight title, his middleweight bout against Marvin Vettori. It was changed to a light heavyweight bout on the day of, on the week of.
Yeah.
And now he's having to put it off by another month. What does this guy has got to weigh? You're talking 250, 240, 250 at the moment.
And Rocco's a
Otherwise,
guy who constantly has injuries, who's pulling out because of injuries. So it's either one guy got popped for steroids, can't make weight, or one of them's injured. It's a really bad sign.
yeah, it's not what you want to see at all. And at the end of the day, I think Paulo Costa is still riding off that. But if you look at even Paulo Costa's wins aren't phenomenal wins.
No, they never were.
Johnny Hendricks, I have no idea who hates Johnny Hendricks, but they put him in there. I have no idea who hates Uriah Hall, but they put him in there with him as well. He went the distance with Uriah Romero, but that was a Uriah Romero on the decline. He then was absolutely outclassed by Israel Adesanya, and he was pretty badly dominated by Marvin Vettori. Those two fought back in October of last year.
Yeah.
So, you know, it does make you question how good if Paulo Costa can't beat Luke Rockhold, a 2022 version of Luke Rockhold, Paulo Costa's, it's done. And if Luke Rockhold can't beat a Paulo Costa, a guy who, like we've just said, isn't great in my opinion. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video of Luke Rockhold being out wrestled by Khabib this week. Don't get me wrong, Khabib is a different animal, but Luke Rockhold,
like 3 weight classes though.
Probably has 50 to 80 pounds on Khabib. Well, maybe not now, but in theory, Luke Rockhold is the far bigger guy, and yet he was being dominated by Khabib on the floor and held there. And it just isn't, and that's what we've always said about Luke Rockhold, is that he's got underrated BJJ, especially off his back, and yet Khabib was dominating him on the floor.
Yeah,
it's not good signs for Luke Rockhold. But
if you're an aging fighter, we'll keep you employed. Paulo Costa will come beat you up if you need a paycheck.
Yeah, I just want to see Luke Rockhold versus Sam Alvey at catch rate of about 195.
Fine, that's actually a good fight. That's fine. That's reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever happened, Luke Rockhold was meant to be fighting Sean Strickland last year, and he withdrew from that one, and now, so that was meant to be on the November 6th card, but he's now being postponed until the August. I don't know what the August 20th. So he herniated a disc, and now he's out for almost a whole year.
Yeah.
For me, yeah. I mean, luckily we don't have to talk about this one again until August, and I'll be honest, I don't see them two even. If them two make the walk to the octagon to face each other, I'll be very surprised. I can even see this one just being booked for two different fights. Paulo Costa fighting somebody else and Luke Rockhold fighting somebody else. Luke Rockhold is nowhere near ranked at middleweight, and Paulo Costa, I think, is ranked fairly highly. I imagine he's number 4 in the division. So I don't really know what the fight does for Paulo Costa.
It gets him paid. It beats up another old man. That's his whole career. He's beating up old dudes. His youngest win, his best win of a guy who's not declining, was a Bangaboos, who's 6-4.
That's true. I mean, I don't get it, but it is what it is. Luckily, we don't have to talk about it until hopefully August.
Maybe ever. We might never have to talk about this fight. What the stats on this guy? One of these guys is pulling out. Statistically,
exactly, and I really do think that happens. That pullout happens, I should say. But like I say, we'll have to wait and see.
But most importantly, on 7 days' notice, we got the fight that we've been salivating for years. We finally got the rematch of Felice, Herrick and Karolina Kovalkiewicz. And if that doesn't get you out of bed in the morning, I don't know what will. What are you even watching the sport for? We finally got the fight. Somehow we talked for more than an hour about pretty much nothing. We had nothing going on this week.
It's a rough week, but George Cambod versus Devin Haney is certainly the highlight. So yeah, we'll break that down next week. And thank God, next week we've got, is it UFC 277?
7-5.
275 light heavyweights, flyweights. Woo. First ever pay-per-view in Singapore. So rest assured that next week we won't waffle on about irrelevant shit. We'll break down the UFC. We'll break down George Cambod versus Haney, and we'll preview what promises to be, Jiri Prochazka fighting. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be batshit crazy moments again next week, but that's just the style of Jiri Prochazka. So be sure to tune in next week as well. We'll waffle less shit.
Tim Wheaton, Frazer, Krohn from MMA Sucka. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Thank you.